Because everybody's a scientist.
Right?
I know. Oh, how you doing, Charlie?
So I did that job.
Good.
Yes, thank you very much. Nice job. I like it. We'll clean up that whole basement.
How you been doing, Charlie? I'll talk over these two. You feeling better?
Yeah, I am.
You been staying busy?
Yes.
Well, that's good.
It's very. I don't know how you do
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, couple. Did 4 in the summertime, 2 now. Why are there so many cigarette butts on the road? That was today, the leaf blower guy. Why isn't the...
Good evening, everybody. It is 6 p.m., and I want to call this meeting to order. And before I begin, I'm going to read this announcement. In accordance with MGL Chapter 38, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make your presence known. I see no reaction in the audience, so I'll assume nobody's recording. So, first item on the agenda is roll call.
Councilors Bloom,
Here.
Burdick,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Crow,
Here.
Levesque,
Here.
Ludke,
Here.
Mendes,
Here.
Neary,
Here.
Penn,
Here.
Schnepp, Starr,
Here.
Tamish,
Here.
Torkelson.
Here.
You have 12.
Thank you.
Hi, I would like to invite Kevin Vagley up to the podium for the Pledge of Allegiance. Kevin was an active duty Marine for 10 years, serving as a Marine Sergeant in both coasts. He's a longtime Barnstable resident, having raised his family here. His children attended the Barnstable schools. He's the current Veteran Service Officer and Case Management, all the Barnstable Chapter 115 veteran benefits, and he personally has been of assistance to hundreds of Barnstable veterans and their families. I'd like to, again, welcome Kevin and have him lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for your service. Now, before we sit, Councilor Levesque has a few words to lead us into a moment of silence in memory of Nancy Clark.
I have the privilege of being assigned the task of recognizing a 20-year Historic Commission member, Nancy Clark, who was a resident of here, Barnstable, Marston's Mills, had lived in various parts of our country, was a talented musician, music teacher, and a world-renowned philatelist, which is another word for a postage stamp enthusiast. And she was instrumental of working with the Boy Scouts in driving force of what the Boston 2026 World Expo, which is the international philatelic exhibition, in the United States, and was listed among the 76 collectors profiled in Lynn's Stamp News Most Influential Philatelists, published in 2022. And really, I think there's so much more that could be said in regards to her working with this hobby that was so influential throughout the United States and throughout the world. And, but again, most important, she was our neighbor, and she was a servant in our community, and a well-loved servant and friend to so many. And so I just want to recognize her and anybody else who might be on your thoughts and mind and your prayers at this time, a moment of silence, please.
Thank you. Public comment. If you have any comments you'd like to share with us, please approach the podium, sign in. Make sure the microphone is on and level so we could hear you, and everybody in TV land can hear you. And our timekeeper to the right, retired Deputy Chief Craig Tamish, needless to say more, will let you know when your 3 minutes has expired. Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. I'm Pete Sampu, PhD in oceanography, and I reside in West Barnstable. 2 weeks ago, I asked for you all in the town council to follow the facts, to utilize the best available science in making important decisions affecting our town, our region, and our planet. Today, I'd like to add a couple more points. To write the record, I have not, either in my September 5th testimony on Concom's NOI decision regarding Park City Wind, nor in my 1st of February statement to you, did I ever state that our local citizens were in receipt of any dark money from fossil fuel interests. What I said, and stand by that claim, is that many of the talking points being presented by these concerned citizens can be traced to similar talking points linked to dark monies, which are widely circulating on social media. Secondly, the concern for groundwater pollution from substation operation or even a catastrophic fire or failure of a transformer is without merit. Massachusetts has 65 substations as of 2019. 3 or 4 of these are on the Cape, and there is no record of surface or groundwater contamination from their operation. Vineyard Wind has, I think by law or regulation, a spill prevention, control, and countermeasure compliant secondary containment system associated with its transformers and substation. All offshore wind grid connections will have similar SPCC compliant systems, precluding any possibility of groundwater contamination, dielectric oils, or any other substation contaminants. Finally, Europe has more than 5,400 offshore wind turbines, helping these nations reduce their dependence on polluting, climate-changing, fossil fuel-generated electricity. America has 7, maybe 8 now, offshore turbines. Why are we so late in our electrification of our energy systems? Who will bear the burden, the consequences for our delay? Sadly, I think it will be our children and grandchildren who are most harmed. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Good evening, Wendy Northcross, West Barnstable. I appear before you tonight as the chair of the local comprehensive planning committee because Felicia successfully was elected to town council, and so I stepped up, and here I am just to give you a quick update on that planning process. Our LCP needs to define a long-term vision for Barnstable by anticipating and guiding the rate of new development and coordinating it with capital facilities. Our comprehensive plan should also define the unique values we seek to protect and encourage balanced economic development. Our LCP is required to have the following content: a vision statement, existing conditions and data reports, goals, a capital facilities plan, a housing plan, and a targeted action plan. The LCP is asked to address the following topics, noting that some topics may be more relevant in our community than other topics. Those are for natural systems, built systems, and community systems. The LCP should align with the Cape Cod Regional Policy Plan and express the vision and desires of our community. For example, Barnstable's comprehensive wastewater management plan to expand sewers applies to the regional plan as our response to the Cape's adopted regional wastewater plan. This plan works to clean up and protect our degraded estuaries, an issue that crosses town boundaries. There are other issues such as housing and coastal resiliency that cross town boundaries and are to also be addressed in this plan. As of today, Part 1 of the plan is complete. Draft and existing conditions report is done. Community visioning is done after extensive community outreach. Part 2 is underway, and the LCPC has accelerated our meeting schedule to write the goals, targeted actions, and performance measures. Next week, the LCPC will continue the discussion on natural resources. In March, we'll take up the topic of facilities and infrastructure. And in March, we should have the draft chapters for land use, housing, natural resources, and facilities and infrastructure. Then these sections will be presented at public meetings during the month of April for community feedback. Again, the LCPC committee will embark on a listening tour of our town, and we wanted the council and those attending your meeting tonight to help us spread the word as we announce these various public meetings in the villages and provide other ways for the community to engage. Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen, good evening.
Good evening. I appreciate being here this evening. And consistent with the February 1 Town Council's meeting, and as Barnstable No Place for Hate chairperson, I'm again addressing the emergency need for affordable housing. And I'm very pleased about the Commission's report, and now moving to formality. Thank you. I also want to say thank you to Councilor Paula Schnepp when she recommended on February 1 for a council-based affordable house subcommittee. However that subcommittee plays out, I'm asking the council through President Penn to in fact support the recommendation that was given and that we proceed as quickly as possible. We're specifically addressing the need for affordable housing. In that testimony of February 1, and consistent with this evening, the Barnstable No Place for Hate has had monthly meetings with the school superintendent and regular meetings with the Cape Cod Medical Center. And in each, they cannot meet their staffing needs. Why? Because affordable housing is not available. And such housing has therefore is a need, and without it, staff are going elsewhere, even when positions are offered. There is a state housing law, some of you may be familiar with it, known as the Comprehensive Permit Law, or Chapter 40B, that establishes a mandate for all communities in Massachusetts to have a minimum of 10% of housing stock to be affordable to middle and lower income households. At this point in time, when physicians cannot afford to buy a home or to rent on the Cape, we have a real emergency. The town must meet this law The Barnstable No Place for Hate with Partners is available to support this important and time-sensitive request. And if there's some way with the commission that we can partner and be of support to the town in this request, that could be one outcome that the subcommittee that was recommended could address. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Will you please, just for the record, identify yourself and what village you're from? I'm sorry.
My apologies.
I introduced you, but that's not my job.
My name is Eileen Elias. I'm chair of the Barnstable No Place for Hate, and I reside in West Barnstable.
Thank you, dear.
Good evening, Council. My name is Dylan Marino. I'm from Katuitt. And I come today to address my concern over certain parties voicing their opinions on the adoption of offshore wind farms as a source of renewable energy here on Cape Cod. While I cannot offer scientific knowledge to the same extent as others here with us today, what I can provide is a unique perspective that is often overlooked in many aspects of our town legislation, proposals, and decision-making. As a young student experiencing firsthand the effects that climate change have not only globally, but on a local scale, it becomes evident that action must be taken. Participating in the Youth Climate Change Summit this past Friday, hosted by Mass Audubon, I was able to connect with other young students who feel as passionate about the subject as I do. Talking with local ambassadors and leaders in the climate change effort for our town, it became ever more apparent that adaptive measures to prevent climate change are simply not enough. Renewable energy is the most effective way in which we as a society can phase out harmful fossil fuels, which are polluting our environment, our air, and our climate. Many of you today won't live to see the true extent of the horrors that we brought upon ourselves, but I and my peers will. This is why I see it very important to address these issues with regard to future generations. Every action we take now in the present will have a consequent effect on the future that I will live through. The strongest decision makers are those who are able to be rational despite their lack of understanding. I hope that today my words will provide insight from an underrepresented group of young people within this town and allow you all to consider the perspectives of every generation when making decisions for our future. Thank you for your time and consideration.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Scarlett, Marston's Mills. Hi, my name is Michelle Scarlett, and I live in Marston's Mills. I feel blessed to have raised my family here for the past 40 years on Cape Cod. Nobody who lives here wants to cause any damage to this beautiful place. I applaud folks who are learning scientifically accurate information regarding the safety of the cables, the high environmental standards of the substations, and the protections of our aquifer. What has to be part of the Park City wind equation is the extreme crisis we're in. 2023 has been the warmest year on record. This trend is continuing. According to the New York Times Climate Forward newsletter, January makes 8 months in a row that average air temperatures across both continents and the seas have topped all records for that given time of year. It was the hottest January on records for the oceans, too, surpassing the daily record set last August. The Earth just passed a dangerous warming threshold, reaching 1.5 Celsius of warming above pre-industrial times over a 12-month period. In the Boston Globe on Sunday, Dr. Christian Dahl states, "This alarming statistic is a series of powerful warnings of how profoundly humanity's widespread use of fossil fuel has altered the planet we share." In 2023, there were 28 separate weather and climate events in the United States that resulted in $1 billion or more of damage. This is 6 more disasters than what happened in 2020. We've been hearing about these warnings for years without an adequate response. The article concludes, "It will take an Olympian effort over the next 2 years to put us on track where we need to be for 2030, 2050. The action we take in the next 2 years will shape how much climate-driven destruction we can avoid over the next 2 decades and far beyond. Do we know all the risks in Park City Wind Project? No, we don't, though we cannot ignore the climate emergency we are facing and the need for wind energy. Some say, why bother trying to meet the climate goals set by the state because they think they are unrealistic? How can we not try? How are we as a community going to meet this challenge? Previous town councilors worked tirelessly with Vineyard Wind to get a mutually beneficial agreement. I am hopeful that this town council will do the same with Park City Wind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good evening, council members. My name is Barry Scheingold. I'm a resident of Marston's Mills. I'm here to speak on the Park City Wind Project. I previously spoke on this topic at a December town council meeting. I was a consultant in the electric power industry until I retired a year ago. I served as lead of the independent evaluator team overseeing the first 3 Massachusetts offshore wind procurements. I currently serve on the town's Infrastructure and Energy Committee as its chairman, but I'm here speaking for myself. What is before the town council is a proposed authorization to fund a law firm in connection with potential litigation with Park City Wind, which implies that the town is considering withholding an easement for which it sought legislative approval and for which the legislature has granted approval. One speaker at the last town council meeting suggested doing just that, stating that the easement should not be granted where it is uncertain that the project will be built. I share that concern, but I think the better way to handle that, consistent with the host community agreement, and there is a host community agreement with Park City Wind, and it does express support for the project, is to provide the easement to Park City Wind under an agreement that the easement rights will revert back to the town if the project does not start construction within 5 years, or something similar to that. This would avoid the legal expense and the uncertainty of potential litigation. On the positive side, the project would help address our largest existential environmental problem in a major way, and that has been discussed before, climate change. This is because wind energy, which is not carbon emitting, displaces fossil fuel generation, which is carbon emitting, and it does so on a large scale basis. Like any energy project, there are some adverse impacts. There will be temporary interruptions during the construction period as cables are laid underneath Craigville Beach and town streets, similar to Vineyard Wind, and the streets and the parking lot will be in a better shape after repaving. The expected long-term impacts are relatively small, as I will try to explain. Like the Vineyard Wind project at Covell's Beach, horizontal directional drilling will be done deep under Craigville Beach without impairing use of the beach after construction. The beach itself will not be dug up. There will be no EMF from the underground cables at the beach or under the streets because the electric forces stay underground. There will be magnetic fields produced, but not of a level that will create adverse health effects. Magnetic fields are not regulated at the federal level because of a lack of evidence that magnetic forces causes health problems. The World Health Organization has concluded—
That's 3 minutes, if you could finish up, please.
Well, I would briefly say that if you look at the evidence that was presented, and it was done at the Siting Council, I can refer to the decision at pages 83 to 89 and 118 to 121, that the magnetic fields from the cables will be a small fraction from what the international standard is for protecting health. And the Siting Council made a finding that the magnetic fields would be minimized from this project. I will also refer to I thought the town did an excellent job in negotiating the very stringent containment standards for the proposed substation, which are embodied in the host community agreement and approved by the siting board.
Mr. Shango, you're welcome to submit your comments in writing
I'll do that.
to the town council, and we can all read them, just because we don't want to just give one person different rules than everybody else. But we'd be happy, and we appreciate your suggestions and your recommendations, especially serving on that committee. So why don't you submit those, if you could, send them to Cynthia Lovell, and she'll distribute them to all the counselors, and we'd be happy to read them.
I'll do that, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bodie Corona, and I live in Marston's Mills. I'm here to speak in support of the offshore wind farm cables coming ashore in our town. As someone who is going to witness firsthand the effects of climate change in our community through my life, I am disheartened at an older generation's lack of acceptance of this technology and the benefits it brings, in part because I know it is my generation that is going to bear the brunt of this change. This decision should be for the better of the planet and society, and I don't understand some of the concerns. I hear about the roads being ripped up for cables and the beaches and parking lot, and there's just a lot of confusion going around with that. For one, the roads are being ripped up and quickly repaved for the sewage system right now, and that isn't an issue, so why should it be otherwise? For the beaches, the cable under the beach from the wind farm is not, from my understanding, going to destroy anything, and it would not be visible whatsoever except for an above-ground structure relating to the hookup of land transmission in the parking lot area. I hear a lot about the concern for whales when talking with others about this. NOAA Fishery, a government site, says, quote, "At this point, there is no scientific evidence that noise resulting from offshore wind site characterization surveys could potentially cause mortality of whales," unquote. Change is coming whether we like it or not, and renewable clean energy is a step in the right direction. In the 21st century, we should be way past this, and if we want to make a difference, we can't fight over every clean solution that comes in front of us. For my future, I support the hookup to our town's electrical grid. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Don't be shy.
Bob Schulte from Centerville. First, I take somewhat offense to references and comments by people saying the older generation doesn't care about climate change and our environment. My wife and I have adult children and numerous grandchildren, and I can assure you we care very much. Irrespective of your position on offshore wind, pro, con, or somewhere in between, given what the town and citizens have learned about the engineering and construction issues that arose during the construction of Vineyard Wind, concerns that citizens have regarding the route selection for the projects, and significant concerns that people have about groundwater and aquifer issues, I ask you to support Resolution 2024-95 this evening to designate funds to allow the town to solicit expert legal advice about how to deal with Park City Wind and its developer Avangrid before making any further decisions regarding this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Noah Sheasley, and I'm a resident of Centerville, and I'm currently a senior in high school. I've come here alongside other students and teachers to give commentary on the ongoing climate crisis and the impact it is having on our communities and local efforts for and against offshore wind. I would first like to say that I'm not an expert, which is probably evident, but that does not mean that there are no experts that we should listen to. One of them is here with us here today, Dr. Pete Sampu, and I have members of my family also heavily acquainted with climate science. I have a family who works at the Whistler Oceanographic Institution, and growing up I've heard from people like Dr. Sampu and my own family, but it does not end with them. The overwhelming majority of actively publishing climate scientists agree that climate change and environmental effects we are facing are caused by humanity, and specifically human consumption of fossil fuels. On Cape Cod, we're either blessed or cursed. We are one of the most vulnerable locations in the nation when it comes to the effects of climate change, and already we can see much of the impacts on our seashore and local bodies of water, with consistent erosion, summer droughts, and the acidification of our waters. However, we have a wonderful opportunity to become a leader in the nation in renewable energy, and we've had this opportunity for years. With the completion and operation of offshore renewable wind projects, Cape Cod will be put in the position both economically better off and at the forefront of efforts for clean energy. It would give our economy a much-needed boost of a sector separate from the seasonal tourist economy, and would help us do our part and then some in the effort to phase out fossil fuels and incorporate renewable energy into our society, something we as a nation are significantly behind on. It's not a surprise that many of the detractors of the implementation of renewable energy sources for the better part of 2 decades have been benefactors of the fossil fuel industry, who profit greatly from the extraction and consumption of fossil fuels, or are victims of misinformation propagated by said benefactors. It's no great controversy either that the discussion around climate change and environmentalism has been greatly politicized on a partisan basis. I will not comment much on this, besides imploring those who may lean politically against those who advocate for green energy to look past this, listen to experts, and understand that we are at a crossroads, and if you want to leave this world at least marginally better than how you found it, support renewable energy, support climate action, and support the message that the youth of your society is trying to send. I'll repeat. We on Cape Cod are either blessed or cursed. It is up to us and you, councilors, to decide whether we are blessed or cursed. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you.
I'm going to time myself because I'm always bad at that. So here we go.
Good for you. We have you trained.
I'm going to hit the button.
I'm kidding you.
Cliff Carroll from West Barnstable, and thank you again, town councilors. I'm sure you're getting tired of this subject, but I'm going to hit the start button. I appreciate the young guys here to talk about the future, but I'm here kind of to talk about what's going on right here, right now in this town. There are some immediate concerns. First of all, in regards to Mr. Sampu's comment, there are thousands of examples of transformers exploding around the world, polluting. It's not mad science. Right now, immediately in this town, the Energy Facility Siting Board has just notified the town that they are once again getting ready to rush the reliability project in West Barnstable through the EFSB again. We saw how that ended last time. I hope we are all prepared again, except this time as an intervener. In addition to that, I understand that a federal document has been sent to the town regarding the Federal 106 permitting section of the Commonwealth Wind Project in regards to the Clay Hill project, the fire tower in West Barnstable, which is again only a half a mile from our resources of the future Bridge Creek well field. It's a critical water source. I understand clean air and everything else, but I'm also old enough to remember when about maybe 10 years ago, a small chemical spill at the Cape Cod potato chip factory closed down 3 of our drinking wells. I have a question. There's been several projects that have gone through conservation here in this town. The issue of well fields, aquifer protection zones lying directly below those, including the Park City Wind Project, the Independence Park Project, the Reliability Project, the Clay Hill Project, and we are constantly, as taxpayers, told it's out of their jurisdiction. They can't do anything about it. I would please compel the town tonight, perhaps they can ask the town attorney or the town manager, who in this town is responsible for protecting our well fields. It seems as though there's not an agency or a board or anybody we can talk to that we're able to get a straight answer from. Those well fields are going completely unprotected. We all know the sole source aquifer story. We all know that 1 gallon of this transformer oil pollutes 5 million gallons of our drinking water. It is absolutely critical There are multiple things happening very, very quickly here in this town that need our immediate attention. Clean air is no good without the ability to drink water. Cape Cod residents are the true endangered species here as far as our drinking water goes. If we don't take care of this aquifer, we're in big trouble. And that goes along with the expansion of housing and talking to various water departments. All their well fields are at capacity or close to it. We are running short on water already. I'm going to say goodnight, and I did it. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yep.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Grove Harris. I live over in West Hyannisport. I'm grateful to be here again tonight and with so many of my fellow citizens, and I really appreciate the students stepping up and expressing their concerns so powerfully. Mine are similar. I think we need to move ahead. I think we as a nation are way behind what's going on in Europe in regard to this kind of wind stuff. And while, I wish it was happening elsewhere, I'm also kind of honored that it's happening here. And I want to thank you all for taking on what's a really hard project. I know I'm here because I'm a resident, but in my work life, I had the privilege to represent a small interfaith organization at the United Nations. And I was at a room when the United Nations Environmental Program said, great, our solution is going to be partnering with industry. And I looked at them and said, there's a little bit of a problem there. Industry, business, they have constituents who are their stakeholders and they are profit-driven. Governments are responsible to their citizens. How are you going to navigate that? And you all have been effectively in that position. People looked at me like I was a rocket scientist bringing up, real news. But I can tell you now there's a 40-page document on how to navigate those power imbalances in partnerships. Happy to send that along if you all need it. If you need to hire more legal support to help you navigate the best contract possible with all of the assurances built in to protect our small area and our beautiful area and the oceans that we all love, go for it. Please don't get us a lawyer who's, going to be fancy and highfalutin. We need people who understand the practicalities. And so we're not just, sending out tons of money to somebody who's makes way more money than most of the people sitting in this room. So in terms of this process, I want to see us all learn more. It's kind of hard to come here and hear different facts and not have a way to say, what? Where's this happening? So I want to argue for more transparency and more accountability, both on the part of all of the industry and on the town. For example, are the payments being made? Is that happening? Because last week it was brought up, you're never going to see those. Well, how am I going to know if they're being made? Can we as a town strike up a brand new model that says, really, this is a partnership between these communities and this huge entity that needs to make profit in order to continue to survive and continue to invest in things. So I really want to be proud of this town and all the people who are raising their voices, and it's kind of scary, but we have to move forward. We just have to, because otherwise it gets ripped out from underneath us anyways. All of Maine has got their lobster industry scrambling to rebuild their infrastructure because of the storms that happened. It's already with us. It's not in the future. And we're not ready unless we get it together to really have this new energy infrastructure. Then we can get on to really tough issues like reducing our energy demand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Lynn, we have somebody. Come on. We'll head to the Zoom audience after you.
Oh, okay.
If you're last.
Oops, I need a separate page here. Can everyone hear me all right? Good evening. So I came before you last on January the 4th, and it was with regard to the property tax bill that I received that morning, which I was shocked. I actually handed out copies of it to each of the town councilors. I will refer to that at the end. I'm going to just go over some of the things, because I was...
Cheryl, you please just introduce yourself for the
Oh, I'm
people
sorry.
on
I'm
TV.
Cheryl Powell, Centerville.
Thank you.
So, anyway, so I did file my abatement, and this is based on my figures, which I have had checked by reliable sources to make sure all my math is correct. I went first, well, I will say this is the second year that this has happened to me, and I was given assurances last year that this was going to be corrected. That was January 2023. I was told the same end of April, going in for the May payment, it is going to be corrected. We thought we'd have it corrected now. Same with August payment. Same with November. November, I was told we have to wait till the end of the year. We're at the end of the year now. It's all going to be reset, and everything's going to be just peachy at the beginning of the year. It wasn't. We are required to give at least 3 examples. I was asked not to give more than 3 examples as I had last year. My argument is, if I give 3 and you like 2 of them but not 1, I have not met the requirement. So I make sure that I meet that requirement. One of the things I brought up was my gazebo. I do have a gazebo. It was bought in March 2016 for $4,710. I can replace it now, brand new, with all the bells and whistles I don't have, like electricity, cupola, and all the other stuff, and windows, for between $7,680 and $8,739. And yet, that's the brand new ones. I called assessing. I was told, well, usually they did. I didn't tell them what it was about. They said usually they depreciate over years. $11,300. Not everyone with a gazebo was charged at all. My fire pit, thank you, was taken off, the fire pit that I don't have, that they've charged me for last year. The penalties were taken off, thank you very much. And the fact that this is my primary residence was reinstated this year. Thank you very much, because I've lived here since 1998 and since 2016. Actually since 1998, because the other one was overseas. I gave examples of my neighbors, just to give an example from around me, places that are comparable and some larger plots. The one next to me has decided to move because of this, and I think that's very sad because they're wonderful people and they have given handsomely to this town. So if I go to the examples, I'm counting from 1 to 3. I'm not going to go all of them. I'm just going to show the difference. I will not say their actual addresses, though they are in the abatement for checking. I don't feel comfortable putting down any one specific address for the entire public, so if you'll respect that. So on these, the examples for those go on 1 through 4 is for my neighbors. Example 5 is where I give the comps according to the assessor's office comps.
Cheryl, that's 3 minutes, if you could finish up,
Okay,
please.
that would be a difference on this one of $719,200 for comparable property in the same area. The next one, a difference of $616,700. A difference on the next one, $748,637. A difference on the next one, all comparable, $709,200. The next one, $786,300. And the last one was a difference of $454,200. And there's beautiful ocean, water views, river views, an extra bedroom, same size property. I'd love to trade. Really? So what I am going to ask is that at that January 4th meeting, there was a talk about forming a subcommittee. I would very much encourage that we do a subcommittee because we need to know what happened. I've been told that it was contracted off Cape. I was told that it was a glitch in the software. But bottom line is we don't really know. I keep being told it's being corrected. But just like in closing, we began this meeting with a 1-minute silence. It wasn't actually 1 minute, but it was noted for Nancy Clark, who served for over 20 years for this town on many commissions. She's to be commended. But it was stated that this is one of our neighbors. And that's right. I was told there's only 41 people. There's got to be a lot more because I know half those people, and that wouldn't be fair. These are our neighbors. We need to know why. We need to figure out what happened. We need to know the background of it. I urge you, please, to follow through with the subcommittee that was mentioned and encouraged at that January 4th meeting where I gave you a copy of what I got that morning at lunchtime, January 4th, dated January 5th, because I wanted something in writing to put before this council. I want to thank you for your time. I'm sorry I can't talk only of pleasant things. I usually do because you all know I support this town and I try very hard to do my part in it. Thank you for hearing me and have a good evening. Can we please have that subcommittee? Thank you for the extra minute.
or so. Lynn?
Thank you. We have Sandy Jones. Sandy, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Sandy Jones. I am from Centerville, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I wanted to say, as I listened to the individuals in the room speak for and against offshore wind and the project, I think what we're really discussing tonight, and I may be wrong, but it's for allowing the town council to spend $45,000 with outside attorneys to advise them what is best to move forward with Park City Wind. And we had the very first offshore wind project in the country right at Covell's Beach. We know exactly, we the residents don't know, we're not quite privy to it, but the town of Barnstable is aware of what happened, what occurred, what did not occur. And I believe as residents, we need to trust you, that we need to believe that you are protecting and you're being proactive with your dealings with them. I trust the town council, I trust the town manager, and I believe that all of you will do what's right. But again, I feel that we should be negotiating the best that we can. We have a perfect model. We have Vineyard Wind, pros and cons, whatever happened with the project. And I believe that spending the $45,000 to protect us in our best interest is well spent, whether you're for the project or not. I believe that at the end of the day, it affects all of us. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. We're all set, Lynn?
There is no further comment.
Okay, thank you. Everybody set here? Okay, so we have council response to public comment on my left. Councilor Mendez.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Madam President. A lot of times in life, your best learning lessons are life experience. And as I've talked about before on this dais, the housing crisis is real in this town. I have 3 children, born, raised, went to school here, 4th generation. They can afford to live here, but they can't find a place. All 3 make very good money, but they can't find a place. So I just want everybody to know that this council is looking at that seriously. We're going to have to all make sacrifices. Like I said, half the people out here didn't grow up here like a few of us did up on this dais. Change is part of it. People want to live here, especially the people that grew up here, and they deserve to be able to live here. And second of all, the climate crisis. As I was discussing earlier with some of my colleagues, I've been going to San Diego, California a month every year since I was 12 years old. I just got back 2 days ago. Last week was the first time in 43 years that it rained. It rained 3 days when I was there. The first time. That's climate, folks. That's what we're going through right now. You can deny it all you want, but go to Howardsport or go to Dennis and look at the erosion on the beaches. Those houses we used to all party in when we were kids are all in the ocean now, or they're in the process of doing that. That's climate. So I don't want my grandchildren to suffer, and I don't want these kids to have to suffer. We have some tough decisions to make. Are we going to do what's right, or are we going to just expedite it and scapegoat it and excuse it? That's all I have to say.
Anybody else on the left? Councilor Levesque?
Thank you, President Penn. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's come up and spoke public comment, and it is great to see young people, 2 of which I know the families quite well, and boy, I'm getting old just looking at you guys, so I really actually sent text messages to your parents saying you did such a great job, and very impressive, and I appreciate your passion, and we are working hard, and I I guess I'm one of those old people, but at the same time, we are moving forward in a way that, again, I know I am for and a believer in the climate change and what it's going to do to protect our nation. I am proud of the fact that Barnstable has been a forerunner in that area in many different categories over the years. And the staff, we have really an amazing staff. Director our DPW, Dan Santos. Nobody knows more about our aquifer than Dan Santos. Town Manager Els and the knowledge, institutional knowledge that he has. And again, I could go on and on, but I so appreciate you coming and speaking. It's really moving, actually. You know what I mean? We haven't seen too much of that. And I appreciate you coming, and it means a lot. And then for us older people who spoke today, also listening to what you have to say, and understand too that it isn't necessarily that we're against the climate change. If a vote goes in favor of the monies, it has more, I think, to do in just protecting and making sure, because the game has changed a little bit. I know we have a host community agreement, but to say that the game hasn't changed, we thought that power purchase agreement was going to be in place, and then that kind of got yanked out, and not only a Commonwealth win, but then a Park City win. So I think it's okay to just kind of take a deep breath and pause and discuss how we're going to move forward. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the people who vote for it are climate change deniers or not in favor of wind power. So just have some patience with us as we discuss that moving forward. And I just want to say the housing crisis, yes, of course, is real. It's something that, that's upon us. And I had the privilege of speaking at a Barnstable Housing Authority meeting today, and just discussing all the things that are happening in regards to housing. And I can say we're proud of the steps moving forward, but we need to continue to move forward in those directions. And again, it's hard to have progress, and I think it's important that we don't let perfection get in the way of that progress moving forward. So thank you again for all those who spoke. Thank you. Thank you, President Penn, for letting me speak.
Yes? No. Council Bloom.
Well, I'd certainly want to thank Councilor Levesque for what he just said. I heard tonight that the old council worked so hard. And in those words, I don't see enough credit being given to the current council. And I think that's what Councilor Levesque just reinforced, and I really appreciate that you did that. There's some other issues that make this wind farm thing very complicated. And we focused on the technology and the science behind it, but there are many other things. The viability of the organization, the cost of electricity. I certainly don't want to see your electric bills go up 3 times what they are now, because that's what the schedule is showing. Thank you.
Councilor Lutke.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. I'd like to start with Rose. Rose, I was really impressed with what you said, and I would love to see that document, because I think you hit it right there, and I think Charlie alluded to it, the complexities of this. When you have a profit-driven, and then you have a government who is responsible to their constituents. And I think that's the dilemma that we're facing here as a town council. And I think all of us are fully aware, and the young folks probably spoke most eloquently about that tonight, about climate change. But there are a lot of things to consider. And Dr. Sampu, I don't know if you're aware, on the eastern coast of the United Kingdom, there's a group, Suffolk Energy Action Solutions. You might look at that. And you could basically save Greater Dowses Beach. You could exchange the names, and the argument is exactly the same, because you'd mentioned Europe, and Europe certainly is far ahead of us. And what bothers me is that our federal government and now our state is, I think, rushing this. And you say we're behind. Well, we are behind, but we're rushing in terms of not leapfrogging technologies, that we're looking at a developer to come up with the solutions. And the Suffolk Energy Action Solutions folks are saying the same thing. It's identical. They're saying, why can't you come to a brownfield? Why do you have to come through our tiny villages? And if anyone who's traveled to England knows, there's tiny villages there with giant substations. It just, the arguments are so similar. So it's not just here that people, and they're aware of the climate change too. So there's some very real, so I'm going to support this $45,000 because I think we have to get this right. We owe it to our constituents. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to Massachusetts. We owe it to everybody involved in this. But again, Rose, I'd love to see that. And again, the housing piece, and I think this relates to it. I don't know if people were aware of what happened in Milton last night when they voted against the housing. You know, there's been a big push for those communities that are in the MBTA, that they will not receive funding unless they come up with housing solutions. And the residents of Milton voted that down. So now I guess they're not going to get some funding from the state that they might have gotten. But, and I think it relates to what we're looking at here, is when things are downward driven, that goals are put on communities, and communities feel too much pressure, there's going to be a pushback. And maybe people say, well, that's not rational. You know, why did Milton do that? Because now they're not going to get funding. Well, there's other concerns that outweigh money. And it's lifestyle. It's a visceral reaction. And that's what, and again, back to Rose, that's what we have to navigate, is that visceral piece, people's lives, and look at the profits and things. But that speaks to what Wendy talked about having a housing part of that local comprehensive plan. And I think we've done ourselves such a disservice to not have a housing production plan. And I really need to know what's going on with that. Everyone deserves to know what's going on with that. And the only way we're going to get affordable housing, we have Hanover that's just opening and leasing, and everyone says they can't afford that. The only way we're going to do it is use town property. I don't see another way to do this, but we don't have a housing production plan that's explored these opportunities. But I think we have to get behind that as a community and use our town land, and then we're going to get the affordability component that we need. And finally, Cheryl, I agree we should have a subcommittee. I was out walking my dog the other day and ran into another constituent. And again, a lot of my constituents are having problems with this. I wish we could have a subcommittee. I know that Councilor Levesque did some checking, but let's have a subcommittee. Why not have some hearings, talk to some folks, just air it out, because we have to get this right. It's how we fund our town. What is it, 90% of our funding comes from our property taxes? It has to be right. It just has to be. So I'm absolutely in support of that subcommittee. Thank you.
Any other comments on my right? Councilor Stark.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank the guys for coming tonight. I appreciate the positive view about climate change, and that we and everybody who talked about how fast we have to move. I think we need to be a model for everybody in town and move as fast as we can. Thank you.
That's it? Good. I'd like to echo Councilor Lutke with Ms. Harris with your offer for that report. It sounds very intriguing and educational to me. And excuse me? Where shall I send that, please? You could just send it to, you could send Cynthia Lovell, our Lovell, our town council administrator, and she will take care of either distributing it. If it's 40 pages and it's too much to distribute, she'll make it available for us, and we can access it that way.
Great. And just one clarification, it's hard to hear, but my first name is Grove?
Grove, Grove. No problem. I thought that's what you said, but I wasn't sure. Thank you very much for that clarification. And I wanted to also respond to Eileen Elias. The subcommittees that we're going forward with, should be established by the end of March. We're working very closely with our legal department, make sure all the verbiage is good. And the housing committee that that Councilor Schnepp talked about is, I asked her to write up a focus for that subcommittee and to do that, and she has done that, and that's being transferred and put in place. I also want to state that while the town has less than 10% affordable housing on the state subsidized inventory, we're about 6.8% as a town, so getting up there. The village of Hyannis has 17 to 18% affordable housing. So there's a big difference there, and we can tell where it is, and of course, the density is where the infrastructure is. So as they say, no sewers, no housing. That's the way it works. So there are reasons that it doesn't exist in other places, but we're working on that too. So having said that, we will go to Town Manager Communications. Town Manager had quite an extensive report. There's information in there on voter registration and early voting, update on budget action calendar, which affects all of us. There's some interesting information about the Healy Driscoll administration's creation of a commission on clean energy infrastructure, siting and permitting. And I would like Town Manager Els maybe to come up and address. I think it's recently that this commission, if I'm correct, that has a member, they have one person representing a town on that commission, and they're from Acton. Acton doesn't have wind power as far as I know, and, but maybe they have other things to do with energy that makes them qualified to do that. I believe Town Manager Els volunteered to take that position, and they ignored it.
You want me to?
My words, not yours.
Mark Ells, Town Manager.
Please,
Would you
thank
like
you.
me to wait till you go through all of them and come back to that one, or or shall I answer that
No,
one?
go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, our governor created, through executive order, the Commission on Clean Energy Infrastructure, Siting, and Permitting. It's a committee that's going to review not only regulation, but legislation relevant to the siting of such infrastructure. So when I heard about this, and actually Councilor Schnepp had reached out to me, I was looking for the meeting and looking who was scheduled. It's an appointment by the governor, who would be serving on the committee. And I really wasn't getting a lot of answers relevant to that, even though I could see it on the website. And so I reached out to Senator Sear, who has been extremely helpful to me on this. At least I'm getting answers. So this was created last year. I almost felt as though I was missing something in that I said, well, I'm just going to show up then. I will just find out where the meetings are and I will go. But here we are a year later. So I got this email. Well, I didn't get it. Our senator got it, and he forwarded it to me, and I included in my report, where we're being informed by a member of the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs that as of February 1st, the commission has only met with the internal appointed people, and they're still getting themselves organized. So I guess in a sense, I don't know if I'm being ignored because from what this says, they're not really organized yet in their discussion. So the concern that arose with me from that was, well, they're going to put out a report by the end of March, and will we have adequate time, if not, and I guess I'll end with another comment, but will we have adequate time to review whatever they're going to produce and comment on it? So we'll find out. I guess to conclude what I have to say, it's almost unimaginable to me, and I have had this conversation with the Lieutenant Governor and Senator Sear, that in any discussion in Massachusetts or even the nation relevant to this, that Barnstable isn't asked to sit at the table. And for all the reasons that we hear, whatever belief you have relevant to offshore wind and this type of energy production, we're the first. And our experiences, good and bad, should be referenced and learned from and incorporated as we go forward. So I will continue to try. I had the pleasure of, with our leadership meeting with senators here today, and it was one of the topics we brought up. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm hoping that before the end of March, we will see this information or whatever they're producing, and we'll have adequate time to review it and comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, if you could also give us a very quick summary for those of us who are here and listening about connecting the need for wastewater infrastructure with housing and the update on the request for more money from the state for the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund Management Board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, on the last issue, I'm drafting a letter directly to the governor, and I'll bring it through leadership within a week. I'm going to, give her a form. We've had verbal. I want to put it down in writing and send something formally.
Memorialize it.
Yes. Relevant to the Cape and Islands Trust Fund, I think I've reviewed this in my prior town manager communication, but basically what we're finding is that the revenues that support the 25% principal subsidy that the Cape and Islands Trust Fund is able to give to eligible projects for wastewater expansion is deficient, not because revenues aren't what were projected, but basically costs, because of the number of projects and because of inflation, are coming in at about 4 times higher than what was projected. So what does that mean for the Cape? It means that we're not looking any longer at a 25% principal subsidy, which Barnstable has received for all of its eligible projects through 23. In 24, it'll move to 12%, and thereforward, I'm guessing it's going to be between 9 and 12% from what I'm seeing in projections. So the Cape and Islands Trust Fund has looked at opportunities to reach out to the state to bring additional funding into the Cape and Islands Trust Fund to offset that deficiency. So the letter that was sent recently by the executive committee modified the letter that our prior town council leadership signed and sent up last July, basically asking for the same thing, but it was a smaller challenge then, in a sense. We were also asking for monies in 24 to come from the state budget, and then future funds to come from an environmental bond bill. I think we've all probably listened to what's going on with state revenues right now, so they're not what they were projecting. So the ask to have monies come from the state operating budget probably isn't a viable option in 24. Now remember, 24 is going to wind down in the next few months.
4 months.
Yes. So we're either going, and the trust will make its decision on the percentage subsidy probably within 60 to 90 days. So we need an answer on this. We went back and looked at what opportunities are there out there to secure the funding that we need to keep it at 25%, at least in '24. The opportunity is that the bill funds, as they refer to them, that's an acronym, bipartisan infrastructure legislation, designates over $1 billion. I don't know if it's 1.2 billion for these types of projects. These types of projects being wastewater projects. Within that, and so that's what Massachusetts received. Within that, half of it goes to environmental justice communities, which the town of Barnstable and some of the other communities on Cape Cod are and therefore qualify for the use of those funds. To our knowledge, for this purpose, they haven't been used yet. Now, these bill funds, I think you got to have them committed by 26 and spent by 28. So what is in those letters that are on my, they're attached to the town manager communication, but I believe you all received them in the email communication from Lynn, is a letter to the 3 trustees, the 3 board members who oversee the Clean Water Trust. That's the state board that administers this type of funding. And it goes to our state treasurer, it goes to the Secretary of Administration and Finance, and it goes to the Commissioner of DEP. Those are the 3. So we sent them a letter, so the letter's fine, you can look at that, but look at the strategy, the second and third page, and that lays out what I'm talking about. Separate from that, and to come back to the housing issue, there's also a housing bond bill. The housing bond bill is money that is being put in place to fund housing initiatives in Massachusetts. Within that, we are asking the Joint Committee on Housing to look at the direct relationship, especially on Cape Cod, between housing and infrastructure. And where appropriate, if those funds can be utilized to offset what Cape Cod is trying to do, east to west is trying to do relevant to wastewater and housing, to please consider supporting infrastructure projects that can be directly linked to housing. So that would be the aspect of that. So there's really a couple of efforts going on. The other thing, more long-term, which is like more than 12 months, so 13 months to 5 years, we need an environmental bond bill, and that's in there as well. That hasn't been done yet. And then we need the governor to authorize whatever's said in the environmental bond bill about this issue. So all of that is going on right now. We talked again about it today. I think we're going to have an active conversation with our delegation because without them, this won't proceed. And we'll make direct requests, as you'll see, and I'll be bringing something again in writing relevant to this, even though it's modified from what we did last year, but along the same lines, just updated numbers and some different strategy how to secure those dollar amounts. And I hope you will consider it and support it when it comes to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any follow-up that you'd like from the town manager while he's here? Councilor Turkelson.
In regards to Cliff Carroll's question, who is responsible for the protection of our water resources? I think that's a good question that I'd like to know.
I don't want to
as
give
well.
you from a tactical standpoint, each of the water purveyors samples the water, plans for the water, looks at the areas that we've identified in the town of Barnstable as needing to be protected relevant to public water supply. And, that is really the zone ones, which is a 400-foot radius around every well. And then there are the zone twos, which are more broadly defined areas. In the town of Barnstable, we've taken that and we've put it into zoning in GP and WP zones, and also it's within our Board of Health regulations. And so each water purveyor kind of, when I say tactically, I mean shorter term, even though they plan long term, monitor, protect, and then the town as a whole, typically through Public Works and then administered through Planning and Development under zoning or Board of Health regulation, make sure that what's being done out there is compliant with what we have in place to protect our water resources. The challenge with the electrical infrastructure is that, for example, if you tried to site any substation, upgrade a substation within a area that's protected, a GP or WP zone in town, that's not an allowable use. The FSB can supersede that, and has, Independence Park Substation. So I think, and there are others, and it's been, brought to the forefront relevant to wind, but the electrical infrastructure is there, and these substations are there, and the FSB has made these decisions, and they are cited within our drinking water supply. So that becomes a much more difficult discussion. And so you ask me that question. We do what I've described within our authorities, but sometimes those are overridden. And so then we try to manage it as best we can. I think the request about doing a look at the aquifer, the desire the desire to continue discussions about water resource protection and our public's engagement, it's an opportunity to seize right now and to put this on a front burner and to make sure that water protection is a, if not the priority for all that we do, and make sure the state knows that. So does that answer your question? There isn't one person you go to and say, Mark, stop this, and I can stop it. That's not how it works. I wish it were.
Most clearly.
I wish it were, but not that I'd want that, but okay, if that's part of what a town manager does, then I'd do it. So, but no, there isn't that one, and then different agencies have different authorities, and that's really a challenge to try to manage.
So is this something you think that our town needs to do better, or the fact that it's in silos is how it is and how it should be, and that's going to work?
No, it's got to be done comprehensively. I mean, when I got brought on in 1989, my job was to be the environmental engineer for the town under DPW. And so we got all of our water purveyors together, and we went out, and we were one of the first communities in Massachusetts to take all that important planning that our water purveyors compile, and we did a comprehensive delineation of all of our zones of contribution to all of our water supplies in town. And then we did what I've already described following that. It was like an argument to say, we're going to run one model at one time and see cumulatively what we need to protect. And it was about half the town when you took out the Great Marsh. So no, the town is absolutely the entity to bring everybody together. And they're all willing. I mean, we all support each other. It's just like, our fire chiefs. We work with our fire chiefs every day. We all work together. We all support each other because it's all about public safety. And in this case, you add on public safety with water resources. So, no, I think you look to us and you look for action, and you don't put them in silos because you know what? The water supply, the environment, life doesn't look at political boundaries. It all overlaps. So you look at me and you tell me to do my best, and I report out what happens relevant to it. And if it's good, then great. And if it isn't, then we do more. It's that simple.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So next is we need to act on the minutes. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes. In a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion or corrections, additions, amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Anybody opposed? Abstain?
I abstain.
One abstention? Two. Two abstentions, Chris and Councilor Clark and Councilor Ludke. You vote in favor? Thank you. Okay. Communications. I'm going to give my report here, and then if anybody has, do you want to go? No? And then we'll take a break.
I was just going to talk about the assessors. There was an issue that was brought up by a constituent in regards to.
Okay.
Yeah, if you
Go
want
right
to discuss
ahead.
it now, I can wait.
No? Go.
Okay. Thank you, President Penn. So there was an issue brought up in regards to assessing and why one street was off to another street. It was a handout given to the council. I turned that into Finance Director Mark Milne, and he immediately gave that to the Director of Assessing, Lane Partridge, who gave out a very comprehensive explanation about what happened in regards to that, about why one side of the street to the other, and one side of the street in that case was Waterview because it was on the water. The other one was just off there, different neighborhood codes. And I think it's important that we focus on the fact that the assessing is not a perfect science, that the market in 21, 22, from what I'm seeing in talking with the assessor's office and Director Milne, is that it was a, lack of a better term, crazy market, and different things were selling in the very beginning. Then it started to move inland, and it makes sense that that property values go up, and it's difficult because it's based off of sales, and one person kind of overpaying for a piece of property can skew the numbers. And again, it's not necessarily a perfect science, and again, please don't shoot the messenger. But that's why we have an abatement process. I will say that I don't have exact numbers, but the abatements from last year to this year are down. From what I think at the time was down about 40%. So, and in response to Ms. Powell's, I think there's some confusion, unfortunately, because we have two different things that are working. We have the assessment values going up in one area, and then there was an error in the tax department, tax collector's office, with 41 residents that their taxes were front-loaded. They weren't done evenly, and that was the error, and that needs to be corrected. Like I mentioned in the last meeting, they have reached out now even by phone to the mortgage companies to make sure that these escrow accounts that people have their mortgages and have their taxes combined, that's not affected unequally, so that they don't get all of a sudden their mortgage payment in April goes up $500 or $600. So I met with head of taxes department, Sean O'Brien, this week, and he explained to me that they're doing their best to try to, again, the 41, and even out of that 41, not everybody does the escrow because they might have their house paid off, and therefore they just pay their taxes without, obviously not through their mortgage. So I just think that it's important just to continue to talk to our finance director, continue to talk to our assessors department. I don't think, and again, talking with Mark Milne, and I know I'm going on, I said, can you give me some precedent about maybe something like this happening before, maybe in early 2000s? And he said, it's funny that you say that. In 2004, 2005, there was a huge uptick in property values. People were outraged. They came to the council. And in 2006, we passed a tax exemption for 20%. So that was a direct response to that, but they did an audit, I guess, so to speak, and it didn't show that there was any imbalance or anything like that. It was just doing the best you can in a really hot market. So I think we're there again. I think we need to give it some time, maybe give it another year, and at that point in time, if there's still, again, the housing market just keeps going back to that. The values are rising, and the residents here are there's a burden to be had for all those who are lack of housing and those who actually have it. So with that, that's the best explanation I have at this point. So thank you.
Thank you. Council Mendez?
Thank you, President Penn. Just a quick announcement. The Appointments Committee is starting interviews, and currently we're interviewing for Infrastructure and Energy and the Zoning Board of Appeals. So if anybody's interested, please get your application in a timely fashion, because we'd like to interview everybody who's interested in those positions. But of course, we're looking to fill other boards and committees. So anybody interested in serving the town, please let Cynthia know.
And you want to tell people that the application's actually online, where they can find it? Or no? You're not sure?
I'm not sure.
I didn't mean to put you on the
So,
spot. I'm
but
sorry.
That's what Felicia does. She puts me on the spot all the time. Yeah, it's
I
on
didn't
the
mean
town
to.
council website.
Thank you.
It can
Council
be-
Clark?
Thank you very much. That application online can be found on the Boards, Committee, and Commissions webpage, where it lists on the top vacancies. Is that correct, Lynn?
Thank you.
It's actually on the town council page. There's a committee application form.
Now we know where it is. Thank you. Council Stark?
Thank you. I had a comment from a constituent the other day asking about, they got a mail-in ballot, and it was a Democratic ballot, and it had 31 people listed, and they weren't sure what they were voting for. So I've asked Ann Quirk to maybe give a quick explanation, because it wasn't just it was the Republican ballot also, but go ahead.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Lynn, can you get those? Thank you. We had some made up so you can see them on the screen.
Show and tell, I love it.
Hey, it works the best, you know. So this is the Democratic ballot. It's kind of an orangey color on the top for the vote by mail ballot. And if you look at it, the town committee, this is a party ballot. I guess that's the best way to explain it. This particular election is a party election. You're voting either for the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, or the Libertarian Party. Those are the three ballots that are available. This one's for the Democratic ballot. And if you notice, there's at the top, you can vote for the group, or you can vote individually. Lynn, can you keep going down on that? There's 4 spaces available. Your Republican town committee and your Democratic town committee are made up of 35 people. In this case, the Democratic town committee only got 31. So we'll be counting a lot of handwritten
Oh, my God.
ballots at the end, yes, vote for in your write-ins and things like that. So that's what that ballot is. The difference is the Republican ballot, we had 2 separate groups put in to have a Republican town committee. The first one has 35 listed. The second one has 10. So because the first one had 35 listed, there is no spot there for a write-in. Because there's 35 people, that's all you can vote for. If you want to pick and choose between those 2, that's not a problem. The second one has 10 people on it. So my caution to everyone is, when you do this, if you go over 35, that's an overvote, and no one is going to get a vote. Okay? So if you are coming in on election day and you're voting on election day, what will happen is the machine will stop. The tabulator will say, hold the phone, you've overvoted. You have a choice. We can spoil that ballot, you can vote again, or actually vote one that will take in the tabulator, or you can have us just send that right through anyway. It means that no one's going to get a vote on those town committees because it's an overvote, and how does the tabulator know who you really want on that town committee? It's a little confusing for folks. Yes.
Can you explain what a town committee is, and is this part of the caucus system?
Your town committee is, in each instance, they are more or less advising the state. You have a state committee of Republicans and Democrats, and I'm assuming also libertarians. Those folks, the folks on your local committees, work together for your local candidates. They also work for the state candidates, and they are advisory positions.
Okay.
There is no such thing as an independent party in Massachusetts. I know that the Secretary of State has been saying that, but there is no such thing. We have undeclared or unenrolled, or, they just didn't declare a party. The parties that are available this year are those three parties: Democrat, Republican, or Libertarian. And that third one changes all the time. Sometimes it's Green Rainbow, sometimes it depends upon who votes and how they vote.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's quite an education. Thanks for asking, Gordon, and bringing it to our attention. And I understand that the town clerk's office would love some volunteers. Do you have enough?
Actually, we can always use the volunteers. We have had over 5,600 requests for vote by mail. And may I tell you that that's a process that we handle that approximately 12 to 15 times before it's done. And Lynn can show you that little graphic that we have. It is an amazing amount of hands-on work. And I have a group over at 200 Main Street, and I have to say, Melissa Chartrand and Mary Lou Fair are phenomenal to help keep those people going, because I can't be in two places at once. But they're doing a wonderful job, but it takes hours and hours and hours of work just to get the ballots out. Chris has helped us. Gordon has helped us. It's an amazing amount of work to get the ballots out, get them back in, get them into the two different systems that we have to add them into, and actually get them voted for you. It's just, I can always use help.
If you do vote by mail, I saw the trays come in the other day that were two full trays like this, and so that's early on even so. But don't forget to sign it, please, because otherwise, I learned the lesson.
Yeah, yes, it has to be signed, and we got one today that was not in the inside envelope, which we had to set. We have to send the whole thing back and start again. So
Very sad. Very labor intensive, let's put it that way. Councilor Clark.
Thank you very much, President Penn. And could you please
Speak
address-
into the mic, please.
Sorry. Would you please address early voting, people who are coming in now?
certainly. Early voting starts on Saturday, the 24th, over at 200 Main Street. And we will be, we'll be over there from 8 in the morning until noon for early voting. And then we close it down and we just stay and work for the rest of the day to get the ballots, all taken care of. And then on Sunday, it has to do with the size of our town and the amount of voters we have. We have well over 36,000 voters. So we have to provide early voting in person on Saturday and Sunday for at least 4 hours. And then the rest of the week, it'll be Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30. Also, on the 24th is the last day you can register to vote. So if you want to change your party or register to vote, my office is going to be open here from 8:30 in the morning until 5 o'clock at night for voter registration on, again, the 24th. So that's Saturday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, yes.
In the effort, we've been talking a lot about climate change this evening. Just want to let everybody know on the town council that the Infrastructure and Energy Committee is going to be spending some time working towards the green communities. That was defeated narrowly last time, bringing that back to us. We're a new council now, so we have something to look forward to on that end. We're the only town that is not a green community here on the Cape, so something to look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, notes from the wheelhouse, that's me. I'm announcing right now and informing the public and the councilors that we're having a special meeting on February 29th at 6 p.m. It's a workshop format to educate the council and the public regarding historical and ongoing efforts to protect the town's water resources. Sound familiar? We kind of just talked a little bit about this. This workshop will focus on drinking water resources. There will be subsequent workshops that will address wastewater, surface, and coastal resources, and PFAS and other contaminants. Dan Santos, Director of Public Works, will present information on the hydrological cycle, groundwater, drinking water supplies, and threats to it, and the town's efforts through zoning and state regulations to protect the Cape's sole source aquifer. I've invited the Water District Commissioners to each make a presentation defining their infrastructure, capacity, future needs, and water protection efforts. Important to know for the public, it's going to be held in this room, tables of experts in front of us. I'm hoping to keep it as a workshop, but no public will be admitted to the room, okay, because we don't have enough capacity to hold everybody. And we don't have the capacity to do a live production in any other facility in town at this point, okay? So this is what I suggest that the public do. The public can submit their questions in advance by email by noon the day before, and we will read them on your behalf. Please keep your submissions in the form of a question versus statements. You may watch the workshop live. It will be broadcast live, okay? So you can actually see and hear what's going on TV Channel 8 and HD 1072. You can stream the workshop as you wish. Mr. Santos, this is for town councilors, would also appreciate it if councilors would submit your questions in advance by the 26th. So he's prepared to address your concerns during the workshop if they're different from the scope that he's already working on presenting. So I hope this format leads to dynamic discussions about our water resources and dynamic and active Q&A between the presenters and the councilors, because this is really an educational session for the town council to get a handle on some of the questions that we actually were discussing with the town manager this evening, okay? And the water commissioners will be here. So it's not going to be restricted to who can ask how many questions, et cetera. I hope that the presentations will be made. Everybody in the public will be able to see. And I hope the format works out as best as we can. At some point in time, we'll discuss as a council trying to get this capacity in other locations on the Cape, in town. But until that happens, this is what we're restricted to, because if we had too many people come to this, we'd have to shut the meeting down. It would never occur. We can't just admit 60 people or 75 people here and tell everybody else they can't come in. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so that's, mark your calendars for 2/29 at 6 p.m. In addition, there's an opening for a Barnstable delegate to the Port Council for the Steamship Authority. Port Council has the power to review the annual budget of the authority and advise the authority members concerning any activities underway or proposed in any port community in which the authority operates. The board shall have access to books, records, and files of the authority as it deems necessary or desirable for the exercise of its powers. The members of the board shall serve without compensation, but shall be reimbursed from the funds of the authority for any actual expenses they incurred in the performance of their duties. If you're interested in serving a 2-year term, which the appointment is to the council, please forward a letter of interest to Cynthia Lovell, the town council administrator. Another opening is the town's representative to the Cape Cod Commission. In this position, you serve at the will of the town manager. There is no set term, as opposed to the previous position I just announced. This position is currently filled, but the term will end at the end of April. So if you're interested in serving in this position, please submit a letter of interest to Town Manager Els. As I think I told you before, I'm hoping to have the town council subcommittees at least being formed by the end of March. And I also want to remind people that town offices and facilities are closed Monday for President's Day. That's it for me. So why don't we take a 10-minute break, and then we'll start orders of the day. Thank you. Okay. Under old business, Kristen, would you like to read 2024-095?
I move to open a public hearing on item 2024-095, supplemental appropriation order in the amount of $45,000 for the purpose of paying operating expenses of the legal department for the services of the law firm of Anderson and Krieger, which is serving as outside counsel to the town with respect to Park City Wind LLC's proposed offshore renewable wind project in the town.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All right. And speaking to this, we have Town Attorney Karen Nober.
Good evening, councilors. Karen Nober, Town Attorney. As you know, as we all know, the town has a host community agreement with Park City Wind regarding Park City Wind's proposed offshore renewable wind project in the town. On December 15th, 2023, the State Energy Facilities Siting Board issued its final decision approving and permitting the Park City Wind project. Last November, the town engaged the law firm of Anderson and Krieger to advise the town on intervention in the EFSB proceeding, and that scope has expanded to include general advice regarding the Park City Wind project. Anderson and Krieger is also representing the town in connection with the lawsuit filed against the town by the Conservation Law Foundation under the Clean Water Act. Anderson and Krieger was successful in getting that lawsuit dismissed in federal court, but it was dismissed without prejudice, meaning the Conservation Law Foundation can file a new lawsuit if it wishes. So Anderson and Krieger is continuing to serve as outside counsel to the town in connection with that matter. Based on our experience working with Anderson and Krieger, we believe they have provided and continue to provide excellent representation to the town. The lawyers working on our matters are great to work with. They are excellent lawyers with extensive experience in environmental issues, including matters involving the Energy Facilities Siting Board, and they are extremely responsive. Tonight's supplemental appropriation request would provide the funding needed to allow the town to continue to have the benefit of Anderson and Krieger's legal advice. The money requested tonight is not a litigation budget. A litigation budget would be exponentially higher. This budget is just for legal advice. My department has an outside counsel budget of just over $17,000, which we use for routine matters such as title research and opinions. When there are major legal issues facing the town, my department budget is not sufficient for those types of matters, and that's why I'm seeking this supplemental appropriation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from councilors? Don't see any. It's a public hearing, so if there's anybody from the public, we already heard several comments to this item earlier this evening, but if there's anybody who has thought of something they'd like to comment about this item, you're welcome to do so now. Please come. Rose. Grove. I'm kidding. That was terrible.
Yeah, I just would like to make sure that the general public can learn from the advice given. So if it's possible, if it's not, intensely confidential in nature, but in terms of this being a partnership, this being a working relationship between the town and a huge corporation, that's something of interest. And I think that all of us learning about the law might possibly be an outcome of some of this investment in this legal advice. I know that I've learned every time I've had to work with lawyers, and sometimes they're not as practical and down to earth as we need. So I'd like to push for this to be something that might be more accessible to the public than usual closed proceedings.
Thank you for your input. Anybody else? Councilor Turkelson? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
Thank you. I'll make this very quick, but I think there is a definite need for this appropriation. Even though the parties are technically separate LLCs and that, We are already entered into an agreement with Vineyard Wind, which is in process. As of right now, as of today, they still have not provided us with the proper insurance policies, proper coverage. They were supposed to give us a spill prevention plan before going into operation. They're saying that they're going online shortly, or they may even already be. Their own spill prevention plan that we have, which is the construction one, stated they were supposed to give us a new one. So I think with these international companies we're dealing with, we really do need to be prudent about the legal works, and I think that this is a very, very good measure for the town. So I support you voting yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Two great people.
Please identify yourself.
Yeah, Larry Moran from Katuah. Two great people have already offered a good point. My basic question is, we've got 3 projects going. We've got Covell's Beach, Craigville Beach, and Dowses Beach. Is the advice going to, Karen, is the advice going to basically be covering all the issues, or is it going to be focused just on the Park City?
This request is basically focused on Park City at this time.
Okay. All right, thank you.
It doesn't mean it won't be applicable to other situations.
I'm thinking this is advice they're giving, so I presume that.
It's advice.
All right, okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we're going to go ahead. No, Councilor Turkelson has a question.
From a practical standpoint, when this money is appropriated, do we expect that you'll be coming to us at intervals to let us know where we stand in the budgeting of this money? Or is it just one day we're going to wake up, oh, it's all gone, now we need more? Just curious how, I don't even know how that works on.
It's probably more of the latter. I would probably come back to you if I needed more money and if we were getting close to running out, because obviously I cannot incur costs if I don't have the funding.
Okay, so it's not standard to like give us an update at intervals as to where we stand in, you know, like a household budget would say we're going to budget 45,000 on a periodic basis. I look at my budget to know, do I have money for groceries this month? Is that something that wouldn't be standard? We would just.
I don't think it is really standard.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, so what? Yep. Council Mendez.
If Attorney Noble could talk to Grove's question.
So attorney-client communications are privileged, and they are not conversations that we would share publicly. There may be things that come out of those conversations that the council could share publicly, but the actual legal advice would not be.
Thank you. Lynn.
Just for the record, I'd like to say there is no one on Zoom.
Thank you. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Is it a second? Second, okay. All those in favor of closing the public hearing? It passes. All right, and so now we'd like to vote on the item number 2024095. All those in favor?
It's a roll call.
It's a roll call.
It's a roll
Right.
call.
Thank you. Roll call vote. You still awake over there?
Councilors Bloom,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Penn,
Yes?
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. Okay, under new business, item 2024-096. Councilor Neary.
My pleasure, Madam President. This is new business to be referred to a public hearing on March 7th, 2024. It's item number 2024-096. It's an appropriation order in the amount of $500,000 to fund disposal costs of the Solid Waste Division of the Department of Public Works, as written.
Second.
Okay. Because it's being forwarded to a public hearing, there's no discussion here tonight, so this is all in favor? We would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item number 2024-097, Council Mendez.
Thank you, Madam President. This is new business. Item number 2024-097 may be acted upon a majority vote. Authorization to expand the fiscal year 2024 municipal road safety grant in the amount of $60,000 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security.
Second.
All right, and presenting this evening is Provisional Chief Chalice. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam President, council members, Jean Chalice, Provisional Chief of Police. The department applied for and was awarded a $60,000 municipal road safety grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. These funds are going to allow our traffic division to put together 5 traffic mobilizations consisting of 4-hour overtime blocks to target specific areas of concern, including a winter impaired driving block, spring distracted driving, spring click it or ticket, summer speed enforcement, and then a summer impaired driving block. The funds are also going to be used to run a number of road safety related initiatives, including certifying officers as child passenger safety technicians, which will allow us to continue our child safety seat program. In the past, we've partnered with DCF and the Baby Center to run programs where we inspect car seat installations, and then occasionally we've been able to offer people car seats as well. We'll be enforcing traffic laws related to pedestrians and bicycles, so crosswalk enforcement. We'll be conducting bike rodeos to assist with ensuring that children's bikes are safe and providing them with bike safety training, and then giving them helmets and bike lights when appropriate. And then we'll also be purchasing a Roadster pedal cart. I believe we already have one, but we'll be getting another one so that the school resource officers can help students at the high school better understand the impact or the effects of driving impaired or intoxicated. And then we're going to be using remaining funds to purchase 6 handheld radar units. So we'll be splitting the funds between overtime costs and then purchase of equipment.
Thank you for that. Any questions of the chief? I don't see any. I had a question in the background. It talked on number 1. It said winter impaired driving focus was December 2023. So has that happened?
Yes, so this grant was initially slated to come forward in the fall, and it was delayed.
It was
But
delayed,
yes,
but it did occur anyway.
It
You scrounged for the money.
Yes, the money was expended and then
Reimbursed, okay. So they allow reimbursements.
It will be reimbursed.
That's awfully nice. Okay. This is majority vote, so all those in favor signify saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstain? Nada. Motion passes. Congrats.
Thank you.
Item number 2024-098. Councilor Tamish.
Okay, item number 2024-098, authorization to expend a federal fiscal year 2024 Burn Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $40,000 from the U.S. Department of Justice through the Massachusetts State Police Department for cost incurred in state fiscal year 2024.
Second.
Thank you. And again,
Good evening again. The department is a subrecipient of a $40,000 2024 Burn Justice Assistant Grant that was awarded to the Mass State Police. This grant is part of the Commonwealth's Project Safe Neighborhood Initiative, and it's going to enable Barnstable to partner with the state police to address issues facing our community. And specifically, these grant funds will be used for overtime assignments to focus on the suppression of gun violence, narcotics activity, and to address hotspots in our town. This partnership is intended to promote proactive efforts to reduce fear and improve quality of life. The grant will allow us to combine state police and Barnstable resources and maintain a high level of service to the community. Prior similar partnerships have resulted in a significant number of arrests and sizable drug seizures.
Any questions for the chief? Council Lutke.
Yes, I was just curious, this must be a constant effort, right? Isn't this kind of our number one
It is.
problem that never stops? I mean,
It is, but this is a particular partnership with the state police where they reach out to select communities to spend their grant award with, and we were one of the communities selected.
how many other communities were selected?
There was, I believe, 7 communities: Lawrence, Brockton, Holyoke, Springfield, Fall River, Lynn, and I believe Boston was also selected.
And did you
Barnstable.
ask to be selected?
The community was selected based on the spike in narcotics violations, our increase in violence over the past year, and then because of the crossover in populations, where we have a number of offenders who are popping up in those communities and in Barnstable.
Okay, so it was just our situation that brought us the attention.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I love this grant. I think it's great. Any other questions, comments? All right, so we're doing majority vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed, abstain? No, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Lutke, 2024-099.
Okay, thank you. This is a new business. We're going to refer to a public hearing on March 7th, 2024. 2024-099, amending the code of the Town of Barnstable, Part 1, General Ordinances, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Article 1, Non-Criminal Enforcement of Violations.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Clark. Okay, so referring to the public hearing on March 7th, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nobody opposed or abstained, that's a majority. Unanimous, thank you very much. Item 2024-161. Council Crowe.
Yeah, this is for new business, and it would be referred to a public hearing on March 7th, 2024. It's item number 2024-161. It's a supplemental appropriation order for the fiscal year 2024, Barnstable Police Department, in the amount of $35,000 to fund consulting service and overtime costs for the purpose of exploring the removal of Barnstable Police Department from the civil service, as written.
All those in favor of referring to public hearing on March 7th?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. (2024-162). Councilor Bloom.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. We have before us item 2024-162. It's new business, and it may be acted upon by a majority vote. Resolve approving a remote participation policy for the town council meetings. The town
Second.
council does hereby approve the remote participation policy for the town council meetings in the form as presented to the town council at this meeting.
All right. So, Attorney Nober.
Thank you. Karen Nober, Town Attorney. So the Town Council President is recommending that the Town Council adopt a remote participation policy for Town Council meetings. And we've attached the proposed policy, which provides that Town Councilors will be expected to attend Town Council meetings in person, but it includes the ability for up to 2 councilors to participate remotely in any given meeting in certain circumstances with the approval of the Town Council President. Those circumstances are personal illness or family household member illness where the individual is contagious or has been in recent close proximity to someone else who has tested positive for COVID or another contagious illness, physical injury or other temporary personal disability of the counselor or a family household member, emergency, military service, and geographic distance due to circumstances outside of the counselor's control. In limited circumstances, the policy would allow the president to allow more than 2 counselors to participate remotely if the reason for doing so is to prevent the spread of a contagious illness. The policy formalizes the current practice of allowing the public to participate in public comment and public hearings in person or remotely, and it also would allow town staff, consultants, and outside counsel to participate remotely at the discretion of the town council president. Thank you.
Thank you. So I imagine there'll be some discussion on this. Are there any questions or comments? Councilor Levesque.
Thank you, President Penn. Just a number of questions, actually. First, why don't we just, if we're just going to go remote, why don't we allow everybody to go remote?
We're not going remote. We'd like to stay in
Oh,
person.
no, I'm sorry. If we
It's
allow,
the exception.
I'm sorry. If we, let me rephrase that, I apologize. If we're going to allow for remote participation, why are we limiting it?
Because town council leadership prefers in-person participation.
I agree with that. Why 2? Is that just a number that you came up with, or?
Arbitrary.
Arbitrary, okay.
It's a test,
Yeah, okay. That's, and so obviously.
just to
they
see
can't-
what the need is, actually.
Sure, understood, and try to be flexible. Where does work fall into this at all? Like job requirements? As far as, does that fall under, like if somebody has to work and they're not going to be in town, would that go under geographical distance due to circumstances outside of council's control?
Well, I would think that you have control over your work, and therefore, no. Because you could schedule your work around your town council commitments,
Okay, excellent.
just like
Thank
your vacations.
Again, I'm not trying to, I'm just.
I mean, if
just-
you're working.
Unless you have a job, which
Unless
doesn't
you
allow
have
you
a
to do
job such as, you know, if you're like Council Lucky, I suppose, who flies to Europe when she's flying, you know, I guess that's a decision that I'll discuss with the counselor and myself and make a decision at that time.
Okay.
It shouldn't happen on a regular basis is the point.
Sure. So everything's kind of like, if somebody, I know there's counselors that visit elderly parents, for example, out of need to help that elderly parent from time to time, would that qualify as a reason?
It would.
Okay. All right. I guess that's my only questions. But if it's working out okay, we could maybe move to have it extended, maybe to more than 2 counselors, or
I don't know. I'll see what the need is,
Okay. All right. Great. Thank
depending
you
on
very
the
much.
success or the failure of the policy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I think we have to remain a little flexible because life is life, but the intent is to do our business in person, and there's an awful lot to be said for in-person versus remote. So obviously, if there are extremely important votes and you have no choice but to be someplace where you cannot attend this, or if you have an ailing parent at home and you're their primary caregiver, then, and you're the third person who's asked for that, I think it would be acceptable for you to be remote, okay? So, Council Mendez.
Question. So the decision is made by council leadership?
Correct.
So, just a scenario. Say that-
Are you on?
Yeah, I'm on. I'm sorry about that. Just a scenario. Say that somebody's constantly not being able to be here for one reason or another. Will you, at that time, tell them, well, you're going to have to start showing up in person? If you kind of get what I mean, because, you know,
I think I would
people may-
probably contact that individual to find out what's going on, to not abuse the policy. I'm not looking, I'm not, I think I told people a long time ago that I'm a believer in rules. I don't like chaos.
Sure.
And, anybody who abuses the rules, I think I would follow up nicely with them and find out, what's out of their control that they can't be here. I think their constituents deserve to know what's going on with them if they're not here.
I
also.
agree 100%.
Yeah.
Because everybody,
So-
well, everybody here calls themselves here, whether they're sick,
Mm-hmm.
ailing parent, or whatever, we all show up 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's a privilege to
Yeah.
serve up here, so.
This isn't because anybody's abused anything. This is because we don't currently have a policy, and I thought it'd be good to have some guidelines on a policy. And if you know what, 6 months goes by and it's a bad policy, we'll amend it. We can amend it tonight if somebody feels really strongly about something. I mean, it's not written in stone right now. I mean, it's just first step in that direction.
I think it's I'm not arguing against the policy. I
Yeah.
just want to kind of know
Yeah.
the nuts and bolts of
The
it. because
parameters, yeah.
COVID's running rampant right now. I know like 3 people that have it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Councilor Bloom just got over it, actually. And he's looking well. Thank you. Anybody else comments? Councilor Turkelson.
Madam President, I'd like to propose an amendment to the item that the town council president has discretion to waive the policy under special circumstances to kind of cover some of the nuances that can't be totally delineated, but giving you the ability, or town council leadership, the ability to make those special circumstances without somebody saying, well, but it wasn't this and it wasn't that, and it's in the policy and it's not here, that you actually have that discretion available to you without somebody nitpicking this policy and saying you're not following your rules.
Is there a second to her amendment? Councilor Ledke seconded it.
Could you restate your motion?
The amendment to the item that the town council president has discretion to waive the policy under special circumstances.
For discussion on the amendment, did you want to comment, Attorney Nober?
I guess the only thing I would say is we tried to avoid having the town council president make subjective decisions so that there would be no question that she was applying the rules fairly. But I leave it to you as to whether, you want to make that change.
Discussion on the amendment. Council Mendez.
I'm a stickler of rules.
Are you on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I would like to know exactly what's excusable and what's not. Because I don't think it's fair for one day this is excusable, but then for the next person it's not. I mean, I'm not saying you would apply the rules that way, but I think it's only fair that we know exactly why we can be here and why we can be on remote. I just think it's fair. It leaves too much wiggle room, and some people may interpret it different than others. Some people may interpret it as favoritism. So if this is why you know, like you said, illness, ailing parent, an emergency of some sort, that's one thing. But I like to know the reasons why and not just leave it to discretion.
Anybody else comment? Want to weigh in? Councilor Neary?
I think if these type of items are left to discretion, I think it actually could paint the council leadership kind of, it could put you in a tight box in some cases. I really do. I think that it should be more clearly defined. And then we go forward, we see how it works. I'm not opposed to it. I think that we all collectively do our best to get here. But I can see where there could be circumstances, especially with the COVID and whatnot that's going around and illnesses that are going around. I mean, that doesn't necessarily make that person really a shining star during the proceedings either, depending on what kind of condition that they're in. But again, just food for thought.
Just know you don't have to be on your video doesn't have to be on. You could call in. That would be okay. Okay, this covers phone calls. It's okay. Councilor Tamish.
Lynn, if I could ask you, for setting up Zoom, is there a time limit that's practical as far as your department goes? Is it 24 hours, 48 hours? Should there be a limit on, you have to notify at least 24 or 48 hours prior, just so that your department can prepare to set up the Zoom and have the room set up.
I would think that, Lynn Point, Director of Communications, I would think that if we were to know by noon, the day of the town council meeting, we should be fine.
Okay,
And there's already a Zoom link because of the public.
okay.
Yeah, we can only speak on the amendment right now. I'm aware of that. No?
I have my 2 cents, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
2 cents for the town clerk. I know, she's speaking up. Thank you.
When you are going to amend, you have to amend the agenda if you're going to have someone remote, because then it changes whether or not things are going to have to be roll call.
Right. The only thing that would change is if you had a counselor participating remotely and that wasn't anticipated, all the votes would be roll call votes. But we would make that change at the meeting. Yeah, that's correct.
That's why we asked for advance notice for people who know they're not going to be here. And so it doesn't really address short-term emergency kind of things, but we can scrounge and deal with it if we must. All right, so we do have an amendment on the floor. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Council Lutke.
I like the amendment, and I would like to think we're all adults and we're all very responsible, or we would not have taken on this position. And I would like to give us all the benefit of the doubt for being very responsible folks that would never take advantage of this situation. And I know I've already made use of this, and I thank you very much for allowing me to do this. So I don't see the problem based on the maturity of my fellow town councilors. That would be my thought.
Any other comments on the amendment? Council Clark.
Thank you very much, President Penn. The last meeting, there were 3 of us absent. Councilor Bloom had COVID, as you explained. Councilor Lutke was traveling for work, and I was well, but had been exposed to COVID, and in consideration for my fellow councilors, made sure I wasn't going to spread it. So there were 3 absences. I did not choose to Zoom in. I watched it on TV, watched the last meeting on TV, but there's a case where 3 people were absent.
So your statement means that you think town leadership should have discretion to allow for more than 2 in that situation, okay?
That's not the amendment we're discussing. No, the amendment we're discussing is they decide on a case-by-case basis if the reason is valid, not how many people.
It said limited to 2.
No, the amendment we're discussing.
The amendment was the town council president has discretion to waive the policy under special circumstances.
Which could include quantity of people. Yes. No. Yeah. All right, so is everybody ready to vote on the amendment? And we do so by roll call, I'm assuming?
No.
No?
Just hands.
Just majority? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All those opposed, raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5. It passes. Good for you. Yeah, it's a trial basis, and town leader, hopefully once this goes in, it'll be here for a long time.
They're
and
still gonna
yeah,
have to
I know
vote,
I have
okay.
to vote on it, but whoever's in leadership would be making this, so it'll last through the ages, hopefully, and just be amended as needed. All right, so all those in favor of the policy as amended, say aye. Raise your hand.
Yep.
All those opposed? 1, 2, 4 opposed, 8 in favor. Thank you. We got through that, that's good.
I think the next one's easier.
Item number 2024-163. Councilor Clark.
Thank you very much, President Penn. This is new business, may be acted upon with a majority vote. Agenda item 2024-163, resolve suspending appointments to certain committees of the town. Resolved that the town council is temporarily suspending appointments to the following committees of the town pending further review of these committees: the Jane Ashbaugh Community Service Award Committee, Water Quality Committee, and the Cable Television Advisory Committee.
Is there a second? Second. All right. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, I didn't know if you want me to do the rationale at all, or...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Karen Ober, Town Attorney. So these committees have been inactive and don't have current members, and the resolve would temporarily suspend appointments to these committees pending a review of the committees, and approval of this resolve, and this is really, I think, what's driving this, would allow the town to remove the positions from the list of committee vacancies that are posted on the town website, so people are not applying for these committees at the present time. Thank you.
Okay, it's a matter of housekeeping at this point. Actually, the Appointments Committee kind of brought to our attention that, you know, some things are kind of a little dysfunctional right now, and so until they get the house in order, we get the house in order. We shouldn't encourage people to be disappointed in their applications. Is there any discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Anybody opposed? Great. Okay, next we have item 2024-164. Set, Council Burdick.
Oh, thank you. This is an item of new business that may be acted upon by a majority vote. Item 2024-164, resolve approving a letter to the Cape Cod Commission regarding the draft regional housing strategy, as written.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Kupfer, good evening.
Good evening, President Penn. Good evening, Town Council. My name is Jim Kupfer. I'm the Assistant Director of Planning and Development for the Town of Barnstable. Today, I'm here to present to resolve approving a letter to the Cape Cod Commission regarding the draft regional housing strategy. For some background, the Commission has published a report entitled Housing Cape Cod, the Regional Strategy, that attempts to address housing supply, affordability, and availability issues facing our region. The report includes regional strategies as well as recommendations to municipalities to further these goals. The Commission is seeking public comment at this time on the report. Public comment is, in fact, due on the 16th, which is tomorrow. This resolve proposes that Town Council approve a letter to the Cape Cod Commission in response to the report substantially in the form attached hereto. To further the decision rendered for this resolve, after review of this letter, if the Council may decide to pass this resolve as drafted, pass this resolve as amended, if after this review there are some amendments by Council that they seek to pursue. And also, the Council certainly can choose not to submit this letter and fail to pass, so no submission. This is a majority vote. And President Penn, I'm happy to read the letter verbatim. I know you've had this in your package for about a week now, so I can also just go paragraph by paragraph and ask for any questions.
Why don't we do paragraph by paragraph in case anybody has any amendments they'd like to offer or wordsmithing? And that would help people at home who are watching also.
Absolutely. And again, so the letter is in the agenda packet, and thank you to Lynn for putting it up on the screen there. So for the first paragraph here, dear Director Santori, the Barnstable Town Council is committed to proactively addressing housing issues within our community and has taken great interest in the Cape Cod Commission's draft report, Housing Cape Cod, the Regional Strategy. We thank you for extended opportunity to review and comment on this important document. After discussion at our February 15, 2024 meeting, I offer the following comments on the Commission's draft report on behalf of Barnstable Town Council.
Just an intro. I don't imagine there's a whole bunch. Anybody have concerns about that? Okay, one down.
Excellent.
4 to go.
would say have a robust discussion maybe before.
Oh, wait a minute. You need to come to the mic. Can you do that?
Because the general rules are that you can only amend an amendment once, so if someone makes a motion to amend the language and then someone else wants to make a change to that, you would only be able to amend it once. And also, once language is amended, if you take a vote, then you can't go back and change it again. So I would just suggest that you have more of a robust conversation up front before you kind of launch into the amendments.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Well, why don't you read the whole letter, and then we'll have a discussion, and then we'll see if there's amendments.
That sounds good.
You could start second paragraph. You already did the first one.
Excellent. Second paragraph. Our primary concern is with the draft report's emphasis on regionalization of land use decisions and the suggested strategies that remove land use decision-making from local communities. The authority over land use regulation in Massachusetts has been firmly established, and rightfully so, within the affected municipalities. This structure allows for land use decisions to be made with input from residents and taxpayers, taking into account the history, context, and the collective goals and objectives for the future of the municipality. In Barnstable, land use decisions on a local level have reviewed for consistency with our adopted plans and policies, which reflect the views of our residents. This is a process that, when exercised efficiently, builds trust in our local government and its elected officials, and produces outcomes that protect, preserve, and enhance the quality of life for our residents. The Commission's proposal for the creation of Regional Redevelopment Authority deviates from this accepted framework. The loss of local control over the siting and development of housing in our local communities raises concerns about effectively protecting natural resources, providing adequate public infrastructure, and consistently administering the plans and policies that reflect our citizens' views. The fact that this strategy would require special legislation to deviate from state practice demonstrates the overreach of this proposal. The Council further recognizes that local zoning is an important strategy to address local housing needs. We similarly seek to emphasize the primary role of municipalities in establishing land use policies within our own boundaries. Elected and appointed officials at the local government level are best suited to listen to and understand the needs and desires of the communities they represent and serve. These positions and the plans and policies that reflect them should continue to control. Regional designations or land use policies may inform local decision-making, but should not drive it or supersede it. We look forward to continuing to be actively involved with creating housing solutions in our community in the future and continuing dialogue with the Commission on effectuating appropriate solutions. Sincerely, President Felicia Penn.
Thank you for that. Discussion, questions, comments? Councilor Levesque.
Thank you, President Penn. I actually reached out to Director Senatori and spoke with her this afternoon, and I would encourage anybody else to do the same in future. She's very accessible, so and was very helpful to me to understand the housing production plan and what intent is, because I think that's before we write a letter or sign off on a letter, I think it's important to know what the intent was necessarily. And though I do not agree with them, and I mentioned that it wouldn't be a good idea to have a regionalization of a redevelopment authority from the commission that oversees Barnstable. I think that Barnstable maybe should have its own redevelopment authority, but we should control that. I do agree with that, but I don't think, and when I mentioned that, she said that's not really what we were intending, and I understand to a certain extent. I think it's important to understand, especially for the public, that when something like this comes forward, this is something that they're painting with a really wide brush that covers 15 different communities all over Cape Cod, and that a lot of the things that they're suggesting may not be a good fit for the town of Barnstable, but would be a good fit for Eastham, would be a good fit for Bourne. So I just don't necessarily want people to think that they were intentionally putting this in place to overreach. I don't know if that was their intent. Part partnership with the commission, I think, over the years, since I've been a counselor, has improved. I think that began with Director Paul Neswicki and has continued with Director Sanatori. We've worked successfully to renegotiate some things, such as Chapter H, which was done when I first became a counselor. And, I look forward to other things. And I do, as far as regional administrative assistance, I know that has been brought up as well. Not a lot of communities, for example, can afford a housing director, and they have affordable housing that needs to be supervised. And a regionalization of something like that, having an office where they have somebody that can help and assist, we might even be able to use something like that in those resources. So I looked at it as more of the housing production plan was more of a partnership, but I also understand of trying to create boundaries. So if that's what the intent of this letter is, to do boundaries, but I just think it's important to know the intent wasn't to supersede, because I don't believe that that was the intent. So maybe I would, I guess, it's good that, but I just think I struggle with that word supersede, because I think if they were going to do even a regional redevelopment authority, that they would come to the stakeholders to see if it fits for our community, and if it doesn't, they would back off. That's the impression I got, so thank you.
Anybody else comments? Council Mendez.
I like the letter because it's right to the point, period.
Thank you. Councilor Tamish.
I just wanted to speak to Councilor Vec's use of the word boundaries. I think it's a great word. Thank you for that. I just think that we have to be very clear that we in Barnstable want to control Barnstable's destiny, and that this letter makes that perfectly clear.
Thank you. Councilor Lucky.
I really like the letter. I like the clarity of it. I think it is very clear. Support what Councilor Mendez said. And I think, I spoke earlier about what happened in Milton, and I think this letter speaks to that exact thing, is that, people in a community want to have control over their destiny. And this same letter could be sent about the wind aspect too. It's all in the same genre, and I support this absolutely. This is the time to do it when they're in the draft stage. Very well written.
Thank you. Council Crowe.
Thank you, President Penn. I have to agree with Councilor Ludke. I want to say first, this is one of the best letters I've ever read. It's very well put together, and I think he did a great job on it. We're elected to make these decisions, and there's no better place to do that than on a local level. And I don't know if this is, they're talking about some kind of special legislation. That's the last thing we need, is being legislated out of this process in our own town and villages. So I would definitely agree that this is what should be sent. It's very timely. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? No changes? Everybody likes it the way it is? All righty. Not everybody, I know. So this is a majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. Anybody opposed? No, it's unanimous. Thank you for your support on that.
Thank you all.
Very important, thank you. I believe the deadline to comment is tomorrow, so thank you. I'll sign it right after this meeting. And last but not least, item 2024-165. Councilor Starr.
Thank you, President Penn. This is new business, may be voted upon with a majority vote. Item number 2024-165. Resolve authorizing the use of consent agenda at town council meetings.
Second.
Thank you. It's on the floor. Attorney Nober.
Thank you.
Help
Karen Nober.
explain, please.
Karen Nober, Town Attorney. So the Town Council President has asked that we utilize a consent agenda, which would be used to allow the council to approve a number of grouped agenda items with one vote and no discussion. So as a procedural matter, we're asking the council to first take a vote to authorize the use of consent agendas. And I just want to mention, too, that even if you authorize it, it doesn't mean you automatically have to use that. It's just a tool available to you. And because a consent agenda vote eliminates the ability of councilors to discuss and deliberate on any included item, this vote explicitly provides that any councilor may object to the inclusion of one or more items in any consent agenda, and upon such objection, that item will be removed from the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote. So we're recommending 5 categories that we think are suitable for inclusion on a consent agenda. 2 of them we've actually been doing the last few years during the budget process, but we haven't done anything to kind of formalize that. And so during the budget process, you know, we refer the first reads, the referrals to a public hearing, we do that with 1 vote. We've been doing that. And during the budget process, if the council doesn't get to certain items that are scheduled for a public hearing, the council can take 1 vote just to open the public hearings and continue those to the next meeting. We don't recommend, and I don't actually think you could, do a consent agenda for any item that actually requires a public hearing. Those need to be done separately. And so other items that you could use the consent agenda for is throughout the year, not just limited to the budget process. Anything where there's a first read or referral to a public hearing, you could take 1 vote on all of those items. Same thing for items that are just 2 reads. You could refer those to a second read. And then when you get to the second read, you would have a discussion and a vote. So I don't know if there's any questions.
So in today's agenda, basically, all the items that were referred to public hearing on March 7th for the sake of discussion could have been part of consent agenda.
You could have done 1 vote
and 1
to
vote
refer those
to
all.
do that.
Right.
Okay,
And actually,
just as an example.
Yeah, and I left one thing out. I know I'm sort of on the fence about this, but one of the things we had talked about was doing a consent agenda to approve with 1 vote the acceptance of gifts and grants to the town.
Okay. Questions, comments? You know, we may or may not use it. We don't have to use it. It's a time saver. It's not meant to cut conversation, comments, or anything else. It's just meant to organize a little and see how it goes. Like the Attorney Nober said, we don't have to use it. We could try it if you don't like it. Anything you want to remove from the group, if you see that there's major discussion, you have something to make, you just make a motion to take it out, and we take it out and put it on the agenda and deal with it separately for discussion, and we can move the other items as a group.
And I don't even think you need to make a motion. You just simply need to object.
Declare that.
We'll take it
Okay.
out. You don't need to vote on
Thank you for that. Council Mendez.
I think it's great. Anything to streamline the process. You know.
You are consistent.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah.
If I could start them at 4 in the morning.
Yeah, I know.
By 9, I would. But, you know, especially during budget time.
Yeah.
We're here till 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. The public loses interest. You know, they want to go to bed at 10 or 9
Yeah.
or 8 or whatever time they go to bed. So I think it's great. It will
So
help
this
keep
is
people more
timely.
engaged,
Okay.
you know, which is the important thing, is people being engaged.
Anybody concerned about a downside? Council Crowe, Council Tamish, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think there is a downside. If any counselor thinks there should be further discussion on any item, all they have to say is, I'd like to
this
discuss
item.
this further, and it's out of the consent agenda. But for the routine items that pass through here, they really don't need discussion. They can be taken care of fairly quickly.
Okay. Council Crowe? You good? Okay. Everybody done with input on this? You ready to vote? So this is a majority vote. All those in favor signify and say aye. Passes unanimously. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
Oh, he voted twice? No, he didn't. That's funny. Did you put 2 hands up? Council Mendez, did you put 2 hands up? I'm just kidding. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Have a good evening.